People keep telling me that I need to go watch Terrifier 2 because apparently it's the kind of movie that I would enjoy. And hearing reports about how it's making people puke in theaters and pass out, sounds like they might be right. The thing is though, I've never actually seen the first Terrifier movie, which, as you may know, is the story of a killer clown killing people in extremely violent ways. Nor have I seen Damien Leone's short films that Art the Clown originates from. Although I imagine that these films don't have the most in-depth plot, and I'm probably not going to get lost just jumping right into Terrifier 2, it'll bother me not having seen the first. So for this video, join me while I watch this 2018 indie horror classic for the first time. This video is sponsored by Wicked Cloves. You like this shirt I'm wearing? It says, "Have a nice day" in like a death metal type of font. The shirt's by Wicked Cloves. They got all kinds of wacky, spooky designs. Witchcraft shirts, skulls, cats. Let's take a look at some of the stuff they sent me. This guy's got ramen for brains, but that's okay, he's dead, he doesn't need them. Got a zombie Cerberus with some Japanese writing on it, and I'm not sure what the Japanese writing says, but it looks cool and that's the important part. Got a Grim Reaper saying, "Your suffering is just temporary." And I think that aesthetically might be my favorite design, but I'm torn between that and this tattoo-style crow with a rose. And the shirts they're printed on are super soft and comfortable too. They're actually fans of the channel, so go check them out, and you can use coupon code WANG to get 10% off. Or if you want to save some time, you can get that coupon applied automatically by going to wickedclothes.com/wang. Or if you want an even bigger discount, you can also text WANG to phone number 666-420. Guaranteed to be at least twice as much off. Take a chance. Don't let the curiosity kill you. Terrifier, I'm told, is a bit of an homage to 80s slasher movies. Which, when I hear that about a modern film, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. To me, the 80s slasher movie is basically the purest kind of horror movie. It's the kind of movie that made me fall in love with horror as a kid. And it tells me right off the bat that this isn't the kind of movie that's gonna have its head up its own ass about its message or how artistic it is. At the same time though, hearing that a modern film is an 80s throwback always makes me worry that it's gonna be a little too self-aware. It's gonna have too many cheeky little references, the director's gonna wink at us too much. That being said though, I don't think people would have recommended this movie to me if it was like that. But anyway, that's enough thinking about what this movie might be. Let's just jump into it. Terrifier opens with us looking at an old school Zenith TV, in a shot that looks basically exactly how I envisioned the intro to my old video about Uwe Boll. We're watching an interview with the sole survivor of a massacre that occurred a year ago, and her face is all mangled and shit. She looks pretty much just like that woman who was attacked by a chimp, and I wouldn't be surprised if this effect was inspired by that. Also, to me, the look of this effect is a good sign because now I'm expecting for the movie to mostly have practical effects. And sure enough, I found an interview by the 13th Floor with Damien Leone. As it turns out, in addition to being the writer and the director, he also did the special effects himself. In the interview, he explains how making the effects, including prop weapons and silicone bodies, while knowing how these things would be used in the shots, helped him squeeze the most out of the film's relatively tiny budget of just $100,000. Back to the movie, the interviewer insists that the assailant, Art the Clown, escaped from the morgue while the woman being interviewed insists that she saw him die. And while this interview is going on, we watch Art get dressed, do his clown makeup, and put on his miniature little clown yarmulke, leaving us to question whether Art actually is supernatural or not. Because if he did die and then survive it, yeah, he's probably a supernatural guy. But you know, maybe she just saw things wrong with her no eyeballs. I mean, you gotta think of other supernatural horror movie killers. I don't think Jason Voorhees goes home and takes a load off and gets a nice change of clothes between killing people. Also, Art clearly moisturizes his skin. Look how soft those hands are. It's like a model. You know, supernatural undead guys, they're usually at least a little bit grody. Back in the TV studio dressing room, the interviewer was on the phone with somebody.
Babe, do me a favor. If I ever look like that, promise me you'll put me out of my misery.
I guess we know how this movie's ending. Never mind. I guess she got here sooner than I thought. This movie gets right to the goods. I'm sold. And that's a brutal effect. You know, in a big budget horror movie, that eye would probably wind up looking like some kind of CG Snapchat filter. And the interviewee looks over her victim, cackling, having officially been Joker-fied. Then the title screen hits with a satisfying 80s sounding synth chord, and we're off to the streets to watch a couple drunk floozies stumbling out of a Halloween party. When they get to the drunker girl Dawn's car, the less drunk girl Tara decides that she can drive if they eat something first. And while they're having this conversation, Art is approaching them and staring, carrying his garbage bag full of goodies. Reminds me of a friend I have who does that. He's not homeless, he just doesn't want to buy a proper bag. They look back and Art disappears mysteriously, and then the girls sit in a pizza place where Tara's phone dies. Art follows them in, sits across from them, and stares them down before making goofy faces at them. And I haven't really thought about this before, but you can kind of just do that. Like, there's nothing to stop you, really. There's no law against sitting down and making faces at people. Granted, in real life, people aren't going to be hearing spooky music while you do it. So Dawn decides to sit on his lap, take some selfies with them, and then flicks him on the big ol' schnozzle. You got an over-the-top whore in an 80s slasher movie. Don't think it's going to end up too good for her.
What the hell is wrong with you?
What, did you think he was gonna hack me up into little pieces or something?
Art silently proposes to Dawn with a ring from the quarter machine, and she accepts it before he excuses himself to the bathroom. The pizza man brings the girls their pizza, and although Dawn says Art is harmless, Pizza Man says he'll take care of him. And then Dawn proceeds to tear her pizza apart and nibble on bits of it like Mayor Pete eating a Cinnabon. You can only assume this woman has never eaten pizza before in her life. Who does that? In any case, the meal is soon interrupted. You gotta love the wacky clown faces Art makes as he gets kicked out. Love it when an actor can get the most out of a role that has no lines. Dawn assumes that Art jerked off in there, but as it turns out, he just takes big nasty shits and wrote his name on the wall and shit. I saw that once at the White Castle on Queens Boulevard. Art imitates life. Back at the car, it now mysteriously has a flat tire, so Tara calls her sister Victoria to pick them up. Victoria doesn't want to interrupt her study session for it, but her roommate is about to get dicked down in bed next to her while Victoria's sitting in the cuck chair, so she decides that maybe she does have time for a quick drive. After cleaning up the poopies, the assistant pizza guy discovers the decapitated head of the president pizza guy, with his skull smashed open, a Chelsea grin, and candles burning in his eyes and nose hole like a 3-year-old's birthday cake. Art chops off the pizza apprentice's fingies, which spray blood everywhere, gives him a knife to the cheek, and repeated stabs to the face, intercut with Dawn suggesting that perhaps should be worried about the weird clown guy who's following them and now their tires are slashed. We see Art's finished art project, which now resembles a death metal album cover version of Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's, with remnants of a tongue flopping about. And now Tara's gotta pee.
I really have to pee.
But she doesn't want to pee on the street.
I can't just pop a squat in the middle of the street and pee like you do.
Well, tough shit, because it's gonna be a while till your sister gets here.
Never last on tour. So she runs up to this bald guy having a smoke to ask if she can pee in his building. When I first saw him, I was wondering maybe this is Art's undercover disguise. I guess I was just being racist against bald guys. He doesn't want to let her in the building, but Dawn passes a charisma check, giving Tara access to the bathroom.
Just let her use the bathroom, for God's sake! She'll make it worth your while!
Baldy McGee, who is an exterminator, warns Dawn about the big rat problem, so she'd better piss fast before Chuck E. Cheese crawls up inside her. Yeah, it's not the best bathroom. I guess you should have pissed on the street, Your Majesty. You left your friend alone for nothing, but that's okay because she won't be alone for long. After hearing some cat noises, Tara decides to explore the creepy basement where she meets a crazy lady who thinks her baby doll is alive. And you might be thinking, oh wow, what a crazy, unrealistic thing they thought of here. Totally takes me out of the movie. But I assure you, there's entire Facebook groups filled with people who are actually like this. And after making an excuse to get away from the crazy lady, you'll never guess who she runs into. With his hands dripping with fresh blood, by the way. Wonder whose that is. A chase ensues through the parking garage, and while these scenes in slashers, to me, feel like they drag a lot, this one has just the right amount of tension to keep things interesting. And then Tara actually gets away. Just kidding. He incapacitates her with multiple stabs to the leg, and then he gives her that good choke, foregoing what is apparently his signature maneuver, the old thumbs to the eyes. But before he really locks it in, she gets in a stab with his own scalpel before ultimately luring him away with a thrown object, manhunt style. As she continues to hide, we see that Victoria is now on her way. Surely she will fix everything. Meanwhile, Tara screams for the exterminator, but it's to no avail as he's listening to some tunes. Art grabs her, injects her neck full of goodnight juice, then imitates her screaming like it was a TikTok sound. Tara awakens, bound to a chair, and Art fakes out attacking her with his various implements, till he happens upon his trusty hacksaw. Hacksaw's not for her though. That's for what's behind the curtain, that of course being Dawn hung upside down topless and soon pantsless by her legs. Time for a magic trick. Tara is forced to watch as Dawn is sawed into 2 pieces, vag first. My editor's gonna have a lot of fun turning this into something I can actually post on YouTube.
This movie's awesome.
And on some level, this almost seems like an obvious sort of kill that you'd see in a slasher movie, yet I feel like I've never seen it before. The effect looks great, and the scenario just makes it so much more brutal. We're only halfway through and this is feeling like a top-tier slasher movie. Not wanting to suffer the same fate, Tara manages to free herself, nails Art with a well-placed backhand, stabs him in the leg, then runs past Dawn's dangling ham hocks. As she keeps running, we see Victoria get closer, and Art seems like he's into this with a big grin on his face. And she's really taking the fight to him, whacking him around with a 2x4 like Hacksaw Jim Duggan. She's got him down on his knees, and it's time to finish him off. Then, what? He has a gun? That's not allowed. A slasher can't have a gun. You're disqualified. Get out of here. She screams as her leg gushes while the cat lady overhears it and assures her doll that everything will be alright. Then we see this gangster film style shot of Art ready to put the bullet in her head, which he does do, but just goes through her cheek. And now he's out of bullets. Darn it, hate when that happens. As Art's rifling through his garbage bag for more ammo, Victoria finally pulls up. There's still time to save her sister. She calls to say that she's there, but of course, Art has the phone. And he sends her a text saying Tara is sick, come around the back. The idea of a slasher movie villain knowing how to use a phone is kinda jarring, but I guess him using a gun kinda lubed me up for that. Also, the picture Dawn got with Art wasn't the best, so he retakes it. Now Art goes back with his reloaded gun, finishes off Tara, then shoots a bunch more bullets into her head. Guess he didn't learn his lesson the first time, would never survive in Resident Evil. And also, the cat lady saw everything, and it's time for another chase as Victoria makes her way around the back of the building. Unlike Tara, Cat Lady manages to get Miniature Kingpin's attention and tell him about the killer, but of course, he doesn't believe the crazy lady because she's crazy. He gets away from her by running down the stairwell, and he makes a call to someone else where he now encounters Art, who decides to test the theory of whether or not bald men are secretly hiding gold inside of their skulls. Although he didn't hit him quite hard enough for us to see. And now the crazy lady discovers that her baby has been kidnapped. She has to rescue her baby, which she eventually finds Art cradling. And I guess the cat lady's watched a slasher movie or two in her day, because she takes a gamble and assumes Art has some kind of mommy issues she can exploit. And it seemingly works out. She begins to cradle Art, and he sucks on his thumb. I'm sure there's some Rule 34 of this out there. And while all this is going on, Dante from Clerks appears. Apparently, he's also an exterminator and the guy whom Mike, the first exterminator, called. They're just feeding people to Art now. As she continues to search, Victoria hears Dawn's ringtone, so she must be close. And she is close, but not in the state Victoria expected. And then she hears a scream, which of course she assumes to be Tara. And while she's checking up on what she thinks is her sister, she notices the cat lady laying on the ground, scalped, with her boobs removed, leaving her chest looking like 10 pounds of chewed up and spit out gummy bears. And of course, that's not Tara on the floor, it's Art wearing the scalp and the titty tunic. He does a saucy little dance with his pecker flopping about as Victoria runs into a locker and hides. Art's getting closer, and I guess Victoria really wishes she would have equipped the head-on perk before starting this round. It seems like she's basically fucked until Dante is pissed off and he starts honking his horn and screaming for Mike, drawing away Art's attention. And with Mike nowhere to be found, Dante gets inside of the building, finding a key under the doormat Maniac Mansion style, and he starts following a trail of bloody footsteps, which lead him to the bloody baby doll on the floor. He gets his brains scrambled with a knife through the top of his head while Art carves his head off with a kebab knife. No thanks, I'll have the crab juice. Now Art isn't one of those clowns who just dresses up for it for the clout. He knows little clown tricks, like riding a miniature bike Saw style, which he rides around trying to search out our final girl Victoria. She thinks she's safe and then he gets her with some saran wrap. It's not what women mean when they tell you to choke them. But luckily, she manages to rip open that saran wrap like a made-in-China dental dam, stabs him in the foot with a big nail, and gets away. And during this chase, we learn that Mike is actually alive, and the hammer blow failed to turn him very special. Victoria then discovers Tara's corpse, which is holding a sign that says circus. And as she's crying over the body, Art approaches with a cat of nine tails made of scalpels and just rips her the fuck up, really putting his hip into those swings. That's how you do it. But then, out of the darkness, Mike emerges with a Barry Burton-style save with a knock to the back of the head. He tries to bring Victoria to safety, and in a slasher movie first, the landline is actually working, and Mike gets a hold of the police. The police are on their way, and Mike goes to get his truck to bring Victoria to the emergency room. But I'm sure you know, they ain't getting to that truck. The hammer didn't quite do the trick, so now Art has a gas tank and his big old clown shoes. And as it turns out, the bald man did in fact not have gold in his head. Wait till they hear about this in Mozambique. Victoria smashes the locked door open, stabs Art in the eye and makes a run for it. Well, makes a limp for it. She squeezes between a boarded up wooden garage door that Art can just barely not fit through. Starts honking his horn at her so she scares her away with a big stick. Get. Thankfully, the police are finally arriving. Victoria hears the sirens and she goes to look for them. And at that moment, Art drives through the door in the exterminator truck, running over Victoria, while vibing out to what could only be described as clown music. Don't make fun of it. It's his culture. As two cops close in on the crime scene, they find Art hovering over an unconscious Victoria, chewing on some fleshy giblets. The cops draw their guns, and Art is getting ready to draw his. Who's gonna be faster? Looks like it's Art. But instead of shooting the cops, he blows his own brains out. And the cops discover that Victoria is still alive. But they seem more horrified than relieved at that fact. Cut to the morgue, where the bodies are now showing up. The doc tells his goons to go get him a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich. And as he opens up Art's body bag, the electricity goes crazy. Meaning, you know, some supernatural shit just definitely happened. And sure enough, Art rises up like the Undertaker, chunk of brain dangling out the back of his head, and he chokes the doctor. And then we jump a year into the future. Victoria is finally getting out of the hospital, where we learn she was the woman at the beginning of the movie. And that's the end. The moral of the story: none of this would have happened if Tara had just let Dawn drive drunk.
Should have just let you drive.
Yeah. You should have.
So yeah, this movie absolutely ruled. Like, this is probably my favorite 80s style throwback slasher that I've seen. There wasn't like a massive body count or anything like that, but at no point did this movie feel like it dragged. And the kills that did happen, they really made them count. And it's amazing how good this movie looked on just a $100,000 budget. And when I say that, I'm not just talking the special effects. I'm also talking the shots, the lighting, the way they gave it that vintage look without it appearing like a cheap phony Instagram filter. And I've heard people say that the acting in this movie is bad, but I mean, compared to a lot of other low-budget horror movies, the acting here is comparatively Shakespearean. It's a movie that on some level kind of revived my excitement to watch new horror movies. And now after having watched this one, I can't wait to watch Terrifier 2. But anyway, that's all for now. If you like this video, check out my video about Beware Children at Play. I'm out.